Hello, reading friends, and thanks for joining me for another book chat. Today, let's spend a few minutes with Foundation by Isaac Asimov. This book was originally published in book form back in 1951, but the original trilogy of the Foundation, what's called the Foundation Trilogy, had been published as a series of short stories throughout the 1940s, but this was published in book form in 1951. So, yeah, I have read this before. I looked back through my reading history and I read this in September of 2011. A couple of surprises. I thought I had read it further back than that, number one. And number two, I thought I had read all 6 of this series, but as it turns out, I only have read the first 3 of the series, which was the original trilogy. And then there were 3 more books added to this series later on. So I have not read those last 3. So Foundation by Isaac Asimov. I really wanted to reread this. I gave some thought a while back to some books that I have read only once in the past, but that I wanted to sort of reacquaint myself with, and this was one of them. So I decided to pick this up and give it a read, and it was a great, fun read, just like I remembered it from the original read almost 10 years ago now. So what it's about, a spoiler disclaimer, I'm not going to give away anything that I think would detract from the first-time reader's experience with this book. But what this book is basically about is, as we open, we have this main character, or we have a character whose name is Gael Dornick, and he is a student, and he is from a provincial planet. And he is going to go to the sort of the capital of the Galactic Empire to be a possible student of a scientist, a psychohistorian by the name of Hari Seldon. So at this point in the future, we are about, from what I could gather, about 50,000 years in the future. Human civilization has spanned the entire galaxy, and with literally millions of planets, and it's ruled by a galactic empire, which sort of the Galactic Empire is headquartered on a planet called Trantor, which is basically the whole planet is an urbanized city, and that is the capital of the Galactic Empire. So as the story opens, we have this provincial young scientist who goes to the Galactic Empire's capital planet for the first time, and he's sort of wide-eyed, and so we sort of get introduced to this culture, this civilization of this 50,000 years in the future through his eyes. The empire has been around already for 12 or 13,000 years, and there are signs that it is going to collapse at some point. Hari Seldon is a scientist who has worked out this theory, mathematical theory. It's sort of a sociological mathematical theory that can predict large populations, the behaviors of large populations. So psychohistory has predicted that the Galactic Empire is going to collapse in a few hundred years, and it will lead to a dark age of 30,000 years or so. But if Hari Seldon intervenes, and if he can pull off his plan to intervene and set up what's going to become the Foundation, the Dark Age can be shortened to 1,000 years, and then it would lead to another, after that 1,000-year period, would lead to another empire, a galactic empire led by the Foundation. Now, the Foundation is led by, or sort of guided by scientific principles, what we might consider scientific humanist type principles. And so he is in trouble, though, because of so this is a dangerous thing, right? To say that the Galactic Empire, you're on the capital planet of the Empire, and you're talking about the Empire collapsing. Of course, this catches the attention of the authorities, and so he's actually on trial for treason. And so he tries to explain this, that what they want to do is preserve scientific knowledge. They want to preserve human knowledge for this coming sort of catastrophe so that it's preserved, so that the knowledge will be preserved. And this is through a Encyclopedia Galactica, basically an encyclopedia that would contain all human knowledge to be kept through this 1,000-year period of Dark Age, or 30,000 years of Dark Age if he's not successful. So ultimately, the authorities decide that the Foundation is actually going to be exiled to 2 different planets. One is called Terminus, and then the other one, and it's on the periphery of the galaxy, and then the other one, I don't know the planet, we don't know the planet, but it's on, in this book anyway, it's on the other side of the galaxy, in the periphery, on the opposite side of the galaxy. So they're very distant, and they don't have communication with each other, obviously. So Terminus then becomes sort of the focus of the story. This is where the scientists are all sort of exiled. I believe there's around 100,000 of them that go to this planet to colonize this planet and to work on, theoretically they're working on this encyclopedia. Then as the story progresses, though, so the thing about the scientists that are on Terminus is they are not aware of psychohistory. So there are no psychohistorians put on Terminus. They are just working on, supposedly, on the encyclopedia, but they're all sorts of scientists. So they have a lot of scientific knowledge and technological knowledge, which becomes very important, but they don't know psychohistory. And the reason for this is because in the theory of psychohistory, if the population is aware of the prediction, their behavior changes. And so Hari Seldon, when he set this up on purpose, that no psychohistorians, no one trained in psychohistory would go to Terminus. They would just be relying on their scientific and their skills. Now, there are, as time progresses, because things progress, and as the story progresses, there are different crises, and these are called Seldon crises. A Seldon crisis, a Hari Seldon crisis. A crisis is a point in time that it's sort of like a turning point of history, right? And so if the group on Terminus, if the Foundation scientists are successful, then they'll move on to the next stage, and we'll be following sort of the path of psychohistory that Hari Seldon had sort of predicted through psychohistory. But if they fail in whatever crisis it is, then of course the Dark Age would be extended, as had been predicted as well. And so we don't really know what the best decision for them to make as time goes on. They're faced with they're out on the periphery, they lose contact with, and so does all the planets on the periphery, lose contact sort of with the main, the Empire. We don't know if it still exists, or if it exists in what form, or if it exists in some form. We don't really know. So this sort of reminded me of like Rome, like the Roman Empire, where there were provinces like Britain that got dropped from the empire, and then they didn't really know what was going on in the rest of the empire. They were sort of left to themselves. And this is what happens to Terminus, the Foundation scientists on Terminus, sort of in the periphery of the galaxy. These other planets are inhabited, and they're competing with each other for power because they're all sort of in a little group, and they're competing. They've lost touch with the Empire, so they're sort of competing for power among themselves. And so there's different crises that develop, and then so the scientists on Terminus use these different tools, the technology they have, the knowledge they have, the scientific knowledge, as well as spiritual forces that get developed, and then economic forces that are sort of also fed in by the technology. Because they have the knowledge, they are the ones who can still produce technology, as opposed to the rest of these sort of planets in the periphery that no longer have the, they used to get all their technology basically from the Empire, and they don't get that anymore, if that makes sense. So I thought that's a really interesting concept. Now, the books are written, I read some criticism. The books are written in the 1940s. They're short stories and then published as book form in 1951. So they're not real, it's not real hard science fiction, but my measure is for vintage science fiction like this is, does it still spark my imagination? Does it still, to me, that's what science fiction is all about. It's just like, getting me in a place where, you know, my imagination is running, and it's making me think of possible futures and think about things differently, and it still does that for me. So I enjoyed reading this one again. Couple of things about other things I wanted to mention was some quotes from the book that I thought were real cool. One is, "Violence is the last refuge of the incompetent." I love that quote because this is one of the mayors of Terminus, you know, early on, where they're dealing with their neighbors, and this is all atomic-based energy, like nuclear energy, 1951 when this was published, so that was sort of the thing, right? Well, they have nuclear technology, and, you know, so they are threatened, though, by their neighbors, and he refuses to use violence. He says violence is the last refuge of the incompetent. So the scientists of Foundation, they don't resort to violence. They use these other methods that I mentioned, these spiritual forces, economic forces, and technological forces, and their own know-how. You know, they sort of rely on their own knowledge, and knowledge as being sort of the power that they need to exercise in the galaxy. So I thought that was real cool. Another quote I thought was real cool was, "It pays to be obvious, especially if you have a reputation for subtlety." So, you know, sometimes if you're dealing in negotiations, and these are sometimes very tense with these other power brokers of this little province of the galaxy, you know, being subtle is the way to go sometimes, and then sometimes being direct can make a big point, especially if you have the reputation of being subtle. I thought that was so cool. And finally, the last quote I wrote down here was, "Never let your sense of morals prevent you from doing what is right." So again, the Foundation is, you know, they got the knowledge. They have this wisdom because of their knowledge. So never let your sense of morals prevent you from doing what is right, meaning your morals can easily fossilize into dogmas, right? And so then you do what's wrong in the name of what your morals say are right. And the Foundation scientists and the Foundation politicians refuse to fall into that trap. And I thought that was so cool. Okay, I think that's about all I'm going to say about this first book in this series called Foundation. The other two in the original trilogy are called Foundation and Empire and Second Foundation. I have read those also back in 2011. I may give those two a reread as well. And then the other three in the series were written later and sort of they're prequels and stuff. And I may get to those as well because this world is sort of a fun and fascinating and not too difficult to sort of immerse yourself in and have a good time in. So I may give those a read as well. All right, so my next chat, switching gears into some noir fiction by James M. Cain, Double Indemnity. This one was really good. I've already finished it, and I will have a chat on this coming up very soon. I also wanted to mention, I will link down into the details below. I have opened a store, so I have merchandise, book-themed shirts, and other merchandise. I have a few selections already available, so I'll put a link down in the details below if you want to check that out. So until next time, take care. Bye.